through the wall. So it goes through the wall, it leaks through. Glucose, amino acid, ions such as sodium, potassium, calcium chloride, facilitate and water osmosis. If bigger space, then larger molecule will move through. So obviously here, a lot of molecule will go through. Okay. So a lot of times molecule, they just don't just flow right through. Okay, they need to be pushed. This is where we need to learn a couple of ways things can flow through. So first one is hydrostatic pressure. Hydrostatic pressure is really capillary blood pressure pushing the fluid plasma out of the capillary. So hydro stands for water. Okay, hydro is water, pressure. So imagine a hose. Okay, imagine a hose with holes. Okay, so you turn on the water. Okay, and the stuff is gonna spray right through. So that's, you can imagine that as hydrostatic pressure. Okay, so capillary blood pressure pushes the fluid plasma out of the capillary. Osmotic pressure, now remember we talked about osmosis and diffusion, is the difference in solute to water concentration. So let me see if, okay, so here's one, something like this. So if there is a difference in the outside concentration and the inside concentration, remember, it will pull right through. Okay, so that is what osmotic pressure is. So it's the difference in solute to water concentration. Okay, mostly the plasma protein opposes hydrostatic pressure, so it will pull or attract fluid into the capillary for reabsorption. So again, difference of osmotic pressure here. If something happened, okay, whether it is too much on the outside, it's just push, whether it push in or reabsorb. Okay, and here there's no difference, so there is no movement. So this is like isotonic, like an isotonic solution. Net filtration pressure is the difference between hydrostatic and osmotic pressure. So water and small molecules leave the capillary if the hydrostatic pressure is greater than the osmotic pressure, and enter the capillary if the osmotic pressure is greater than hydrostatic pressure. Okay, simply put, if the hydrostatic pressure is greater, then it will just go straight in. Okay, so water and molecule will leave the capillary. They will leave the capillary. Okay, if the hydrostatic pressure is great. So if this is very strong, it's going to push right through. Okay, and it will enter the capillary if the hydrostatic is not very strong, but the attraction of the osmosis is stronger than the hydrostatic pressure, then it will be absorbed. Okay, let's go to the second part. Homeostatic regulation. So again, homeostatic, our body is always trying to reach homeostasis. Okay, depending on your need for nutrient and oxygen. Okay, here's just a summary. Of course, you don't have to memorize this chart. Okay, so there are several ways. One is neuronal. Okay, so once again, neuroendocrine for large and far-reaching changes. Autoregulation for local changes. Okay, here is a neuronal way. Okay, autoregulate, neuronal way. Ultimately, it will reach homeostasis. Okay, for example, neuromechanism. Okay, this one we will study extensively. Okay, here is your endocrine will help control your blood pressure, okay, with renal, adrenal, the brain and the heart, all this, okay, just for homeostasis, okay. Neuroregulation, okay, we already talked about these, okay. Cardio accelerator makes the heart goes faster, like your sympathetic. Slow down the heart, parasympathetic, okay. Vasomotor control, which is your vaso is your arteries, okay. Mostly sympathetic division, okay. Again, it's the same goal, homeostasis. Baroreceptor, we talked about this briefly, okay. Baroreceptor are stimulated by stretch, okay, the volume of the pressure. So it can tell, let's say you're have an increase of blood pressure, so it is stretched, okay. So what happened when it's stretched? Okay, it's too much. Here's what's going to happen, okay. Then the heart rate will decrease because it's stretching too much. Let's make the vessels bigger so the blood pressure will go down, because if not, it's going to get too much, okay. And then here's the opposite, okay. Chemoreceptor, chemo of course senses the oxygen, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen ion, okay. As your activity increases, so the more activity you do, you have an increase in CO2 because it's a waste product, okay, and hydrogen ion increase. This stimulate cardio accelerator, okay. It will pump it out faster, okay. Cardiac output increases. Vessel change in diameter, okay. So more blood will be out. Endocrine, we saw endocrine, okay, epinephrine, norepinephrine. ADH, if you remember your hormones, okay, ADH will increase blood volume and pressure by absorbing water. We talked about aldosterone, and these we'll talk about later as we get into the lungs and the kidneys, which also helps increase blood volume when there is a decrease of blood pressure. These goals, they all go into action. Erythropoietin could be because decrease of blood pressure caused by bleeding or whatever, okay, and then your body will make more red blood cells, which will increase the volume, okay. So this is just, okay, a whole chart of what happened. Again, is for homeostasis restoration. So we talked about if blood pressure is down. I think we talked about down. Let's see if it's here. If blood pressure goes down, we will have a hormone of aldosterone. Okay, you'll see renin, angiotensin 2, and all that stuff. Mainly aldosterone is for you to remember. But if it increases, okay, one of the ways the body will use hormones, it will have atrial natriuretic hormone. So it's a salt. Okay, natriuretic is salt. This causes you to urinate more by preventing the reabsorption of sodium by the kidney, which prevent water reabsorption. Remember, salt always water follows salt. Okay, so if you pee out the salt, you prevent absorption of the salt, then you have less water retention, less water, less blood pressure. Okay, so this is also called anti-aldosterone, because aldosterone is the opposite. When it releases when your blood pressure is low. Therefore, when your blood pressure is low, it will cause sodium reabsorption, and water will follow sodium, and so on and so forth. Autoregulation. It's a local level control. Chemical signal, decrease in nutrient and oxygen. So what happened is, let's say you have a decrease in nutrient and oxygen level. Okay, what happened when there's a decrease in oxygen level? You have an increase of waste, right? The waste including, carbon dioxide, and inflammatory chemicals such as histamine and kinins, okay, or increase in body temperature. All these will cause vasodilation. Okay, it will relax the precapillary sphincter. We saw those where they are, where the body needs it, and it's going to go there to increase oxygen, to pump out all these inflammatory products out to the veins, to the kidneys, or wherever it needs to go. Okay, so that would be a local response. Myogenic response, depending on how much the heart is stretched, okay, the muscle, okay, so it's reaction to stretch in the smooth muscle, okay, depending on how much it is stretched. So if the blood flow is too low, there's not a lot of stretch, right? Decrease stretch, muscle relaxes, okay? If the blood is too high, there's an increased stretch, muscle will contract, okay? So again, here is a summary of neuroendocrine, autoregulation. Okay, we saw all these. Okay, and that's it for blood vessels and circulation. And I will see you next time.